Welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm TJ,
And I'm MJ.
and this is a low-key ghetto Bible study.
That's what it is. And we still in Genesis. We're going to be in Genesis for a while. But this week we're looking at Genesis chapter 16. So TJ will take it away.
Alright.
Wait. We have to ask you to pause to pray. And now we can get into it.
Alright, so I think we need to start with a disclaimer that this is probably going to be a long, highly emotional one.
Really?
This is chapter 16.
For you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I understand.
Yeah.
I think I understand.
We have very personal takes and views on what goes down
Okay.
in chapter 16. So let's get into it. So, we've fast forward some time, and at this point, Sarah, Abraham's wife, has still not had child, because in the previous chapter, I believe, we have God making the covenant with Abraham and telling him that he's going to give him as many descendants as the stars. But we've moved along, and Sarai still has not had a child. But she has an Egyptian slave named Hagar. And so she comes to Abraham and she tells him, God hasn't let me have a child. Go sleep with my servant, my slave, and maybe I can have a family through her descendants. Alright? And Abraham was like, well, I mean, God did say I will have children. It's not happening with us, so no, let's try this. And this happened. We're given a timeline. They're saying this happened after Abraham had been living in Canaan for 10 years. And so Sarai brings Hagar. Abraham sleeps with her, and Hagar becomes pregnant. And when Hagar realizes she's pregnant, she begins to behave condescendingly and show contempt towards Sarai, her mistress. And so Sarai goes back to Abraham and tells him, this is your fault. Alright? I gave you my servant to sleep with. And now that she is pregnant, she's showing disdain towards me. May God judge between the two of us, me and you. Alright? And Abraham responds and tells her, she's still your servant. You deal with her how you want. And Sarai's response to that was to mistreat Hagar. And so it became too much for the pregnant Hagar, and so she ran away. And so that was Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 to 8. We're not finished yet. I just realized that we're not finished yet. So Hagar runs away, and an angel finds her near a spring in the desert, and he calls her by name, and he says, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? And Hagar responds and confesses that she's running away from her mistress Sarai. Now we're done. We've discussed this.
Yes.
So I know we have a lot of takes, but before we get into the the emotion, not the emotion, but like our views about like the bulk of it, I just want to mention here that so far God has told Abraham that he would have numerous descendants, right? And there has not been a mention of Sarai being involved. Right? So
I didn't notice that.
So up to this point, right, we just keep seeing Abraham, you will be the father of many nations. You will have as many descendants as many plentiful as the sea. And there's not been mention of it necessarily happening through Sarah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So I just putting that out there.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
I just putting that out there. Yes. So what are your thoughts? I know you have
that changes things for me though. You sure there's not been any mention?
Not yet.
You sure?
No, as far as we looked at, we're at chapter 16. So far, it has been Abraham, you will be the father of many nations.
That changes the whole thing for me. I feel like, I don't see why he could be like, oh, okay, so I'll be the father of many nations, but not with my wife, my current wife.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Because as we looked at the covenant, and we looked at the promise prior to that, and as far as I remember, there has been no direct mention of. There's been no actually as far as I remember, there's been no mention of Sarah. It has just been Abraham. I will make you the father of many nations. Through your descendants will be numerous. You will have kings as your descendants, and yeah, we've gone ahead.
I'm shook, but like okay, like literally, if that is the case, I will not be upset with. I'm not upset with Abraham
As much.
No, well, you know why I'm upset with Abraham, but I'm not upset with Abraham because, like, although I feel like even at that time, it's uncharacteristic for them to have multiple wives. Like, they're so close to Adam and Eve, and understanding that there were only two people in a marriage, right? So they're so close to that. I feel like it would still be
because
strange.
Because like his grandson ends up with multiple wives,
right? But like he did it, so like he. So I feel like further generations are like, oh, okay.
But in this context, we're talking about marriage, right? Like we speaking specifically about marriage, but that does not mean he might not have had concubines. And because like I was reading a commentary and it talked about the fact that by having slept with Hagar, Abraham essentially made her a wife. She may not have been a wife in the capacity that Sarai was, but by his action of sleeping with her, she became a wife.
Because like I don't know that like marriages were legal things at that point in time. I don't think so. I feel like consummation was as legal as it got. So I could understand that, but yeah, I don't know that it was commonplace for. Well, we don't know.
We not necessarily the legality of that we have today. It's marriage being a legal
That's what I mean.
process.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't know that it was commonplace for you to have multiple wives. But we don't know that. We really have no other concept outside of what's written in the Bible. When I say we, I mean literally the two of us. Some other people some other scholars might have a concept, but that gives me a little. It makes me uncomfortable though. That, like, was it not clear that the child of promise, the son of promise, would come through Sarah? And like, can you really be upset with them for saying, oh, my mistake for thinking it would be with the woman I've been married with for the past how many years? It must be from some other root.
But we don't even know that they were trying to have, because like at this point there's no child of promise, right? It's just that you will have many descendants. That's the promise at this point, right? So there's not even a child of promise to speak of. It is just that God has, on more than one occasion, promised to make Abraham the father of many nations. He's going to have descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth, as the stars of the sky. So that's all we have at this point. And so, I guess as far as they're concerned, there has to be some way to start making the numerous descendants.
Well, we know that Abraham has to have a son. If he's going to have an heir, he has to believe that he's going to have a son. So I feel like we're going for a son.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well let's get into it. I'm completely, what's the word, disoriented going in because of that.
Okay.
But let's continue.
Yeah, we could always go back and check it out before we release this episode.
Like, I'm completely disoriented. Like, it changes everything for me, but not everything.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Okay, so with that aside, right, we still have many issues with what went down.
Right.
Because here we have a young woman who's an Egyptian, which means she was picked up when during their sojourn to
Right.
Egypt, and
Their
she
whole Pharaoh Sarai
right.
debacle.
and she left with them when they got kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're going to assume that she's relatively young.
Right.
Yeah?
And she's not one of them born into their household.
No.
She's been with them. We saying that Abraham has been in Canaan for about 10 years. So she's lived with them for just about 10 years.
Mm.
I don't think that's long enough to really get to know people. I think
You need 20 years?
24 to be exact. Right? Yeah. I don't know. 10 years is a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is. However, like, these people have been your owners,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Well,
yeah, she's
context.
a slave.
Right.
Yeah, they've been, and I think this has put into context for me. I've like, to me, in every story, Hagar is portrayed as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
She and her son are portrayed as villains, but like this is her villain origin story.
Mm-hmm.
Like I completely understand why she could be bitter and like angry and vengeful after you process. She's like you saying, she's young. She's very young,
and she's away from her family.
she's like, and we're not even sure that like they have similar beliefs. We're not sure that the diversion has happened between like these Hebrews that we're following. Well, is he a Hebrew yet? I don't even know.
We don't know.
This group of people that we're following and then like the rest of the world, we don't know that the diversion between gods and beliefs has happened. So we don't know what she believes, and she's just tagging along with these random people who we don't know, working for them, right? And then her mistress just ups and is like, "Oh, you go sleep with my 85-year-old husband," like I cannot understand how that could feel. Like, I cannot understand it. And this is not a if you would like. This is a direct command, because Sarah and Abraham have their conversation, and Hagar just like
This is one of her duties as a servant.
Exactly. Yeah. And what I was processing for the first time is that this is Sarai's in studying Jacob, and is it Jacob? Jacob's story. I was discovering that they considered that to be surrogacy. Right. So in like how we have the technology now where you could actually put your the embryo from the couple into another person. They didn't even know how this worked. But they considered it to be surrogacy. So Sarah is thinking she's going to have children through Hagar. It's not just Abraham, but she's going to have children through Hagar,
because this is somebody she technically owned.
Right.
So as a result, any descendants of this person are her own as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so it just like it just felt like Hagar was being used, like in every sense of the word. She was being used, and it just makes me so angry. like I feel like here is a young vulnerable woman being exploited, and like, how can people who are followers of God be the perpetrators or something like that? No, like here is the patriarch of not just Christianity, Judaism, and so many like we look up to this man, like oh my goodness,
Father Abraham.
Yeah, and he is taking part in something like this. It's
But like, I think as we've mentioned in previous episodes, looking at Abraham, we do not know what is considered. Like, yes, we know that's considered old, but like in comparison to what we consider old now, you understand what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to justify it, right? I'm not saying that it was okay in any sense, but I'm just saying that our concept of old, and even in terms of Hagar. Like, we talk about her probably being a young woman, but we also don't know how young she might have been.
She's of childbearing age, and we've established that Sarah is not.
We don't know that.
Yes. When every time the in the next
It's in the next chapter.
in the next chapter,
Yeah.
right? And
But
that's
the next chapter is 13 years later. The next chapter is 13 years later. So we don't
I don't know.
I don't know. Right? But what I'm saying is that I think 10 years ago, Sarai was attractive enough to pull in an entire pharaoh. Right? So what we going a lot of it we processing based on our current standards. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know. I still think it's like we saying that 100 years is a generation because that's the general lifespan. He's just 15 years until he reached the
generation
the
gap.
generation thing. I like how young does Hagar have to be? And well, another thing is we don't know like whether slaves could marry because like she's unmarried.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. I don't imagine that Sarai would just pull somebody's wife, even though she's a slave, and shove them at
Her
husband. But and then there's the thing of how do we know? How did they know that she would not be barren? As another thing, how did they know she was?
I don't know that they knew. I think it was just they were taking a shot.
This is just like it just upsets me. I don't care how old Hagar was. It's even more disgusting if she's young, but like her right to
Autonomy.
right, yeah. It's just to me it's disgusting. Yeah. They violated that basic human right. Yeah. Yes. But moving on. I'm just thinking about these biblical men and their wives and their ideas. Like Adam and Eve, like from the get-go, she's like, "Here, Adam, take the fruit."
You saying women been the problem from the
But the thing is, they listen. And I think that is
at
something.
the wrong time.
I don't know. And you have Solomon, the wisest man to ever live, being led astray by his wives.
Ahab.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and so I guess that could be a lesson that I don't see evidence of women being led astray by their husbands. I don't know if because how the Bible is written through the patriarchy, the patriarchal lens. I can't think of any examples of women being led astray by their husbands. I could think of Abigail trying to get her husband
To do the right thing.
But yeah, so this is something dudes need to take into consideration when they're getting married, that there may come a time when your wife asks you to do something. Before you get married, you need to make sure that like the person you're marrying is going to ask you to do a good thing and not something that could be the downfall of like all humanity. So yeah, that was something the Job situation, he didn't listen.
Okay.
I feel like yeah. So we have one good.
But we also have
ending.
the flip side, because like we studied Esther and we looked at what's his name, Haman, where his wife initially was like build a thing, and then at the end she was like, this will be your downfall. And so I think it could go like you say, you need to have a spirit-led wife.
Yes, definitely.
Coming back to Abraham, in the previous chapter we had looked at the fact that God had made the covenant with him about him giving him as many descendants as the stars, and we talked about the fact that at that point he believed God, and God credited him that act of faith, that trust, credited him as righteousness. And so we genuinely believe that Abraham is trusting God to give him descendants as plentiful as the stars, but he seems to believe like God needs his help to do it.
Well, like, why wouldn't God need his help? Like, he's Abraham, the
Nothing yet.
Yeah, he's nothing yet.
Yeah, he's nothing yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'm so disappointed in these two guys. And my next point is that Sarai, after what she wanted to happen happens, the lady is pregnant, right? Right? Goes and says to Abraham, "This is your fault."
Yeah.
Like
she forgot this was her whole scheme.
I don't understand. And then she, on top of
But
that, she's going to abuse a pregnant woman.
I think the problem there is that she realized that this was not going to be a surrogacy. Hagar is not just going to give up her child to her for her descendant. Hagar has every intention of having her child as her
and
child.
probably taking Sarai's place. Yeah, that looked like I am I'm the baby mama, and so I should get precedence over you. In this household, I am now the matriarch. Who are you?
I think that's the point I have here is that Sarai had Hagar elevated to a wife, and then got upset when she wouldn't act like a slave anymore. Yeah. So I think like it's just big problematic energy, and I think yes, like with all my heart I believe Sarai is wrong for mistreating Hagar. But it's not a but.
It could be a but also it's not a but.
No, it's
and
not a
also
but. And also, but I don't know. Like, but it's not a but. On the other hand, I feel like I can't say that she was out of place, right? Because they've elevated her to the status, but. I keep saying but it's not but. I think that Hagar was also being Batman. Because it is a thing of, you are an old woman, you can't get pregnant, here I am pregnant with your husband's child. And I think that it could be a level of facetious, is that the word? I don't know what that word is. But I think it was, to an extent, pouring salt and vinegar in a very open wound.
Okay.
And that didn't sit right with me either. That does not justify her mistreatment, does not justify anything that has happened prior, but I also think it was a situation where they were both not being spirit-led.
Okay. They were reacting to a situation instead of responding to it.
Right.
Yeah. This chapter had me all, I don't know. But that's it for
this
me
section?
on that section.
Right. So let's go. Verses 9 to 16. So the angel speaks to Hagar. They still at the well, the spring, and he warns her against continuing on her journey, because I think some versions say that she was planning to go back to Egypt. And he basically tells her that she would not survive on her own in the desert, and instead she should go back to Sarai and obey like she had done in the past, and she would be treated well. The angel also adds that Hagar's descendants would be too numerous to mention. She would have a son, and that she should call him Ishmael, which means God hears and answers prayers. He would be a fighter and have great strength, and he will make a place for himself, even though he would be opposed, and there will not be peace between him and his brothers. And he and his descendants would eventually live east of where Hagar had met the angel. Then Hagar called the angel she had spoken to. What am I saying? Oh, and then Hagar called the angel that she had spoken to, the God who sees me, because she said, I have seen the light of the one who sees me, and I am still alive. And the well where she sat was given a name that means the well of the living one who sees. So Hagar goes back to Sarai and gives birth to Abraham's son and named him Ishmael as the angel had told her to. Abraham was 86 when Ishmael was born.
Okay.
So that brings us to the end of the chapter.
Okay. A lot of people believe that the angel of the Lord is literally God.
Okay.
I feel like that's the similar. Well, I think when they say God, I think they're thinking about Michael, and so like Jesus. So like when Joshua meets the angel of the Lord's army, they believe it's Jesus. I think there's another reference, but I can't think of it. When they talk about Jacob, when Jacob wrestles with the angel of the Lord, they believe it's a reference to Jesus.
Okay.
So
my first point is that in her rush to get out of a bad situation, Hagar never considered that she was possibly getting into a worse one. Because to think as a pregnant woman that you could travel through the desert on your own and get there safely.
Okay.
Wherever you plan to go to and get there safely.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like for many, many reasons.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I didn't think about that. My first point is about the angel. She talks about seeing God, right? So I'm going to refer to. He's asking questions that he already knows the answer to, and like to me, that's such a God thing to do. Like, where are you coming from? Does he ask who are you?
No, he calls her by name.
He calls her by name and asks, where are you coming from? Where are you going to? And like what is the purpose of that? Is it for her to
be honest,
catch herself and think about her situation? Because he already know the answer. And
I think it was a moment of I don't think reckoning is necessarily the word, like the appropriate word, but I think it was what are you doing? What are you really doing? Type situation. But following upon that, I wanted I don't know if you have anything in between that, but I wanted to jump forward to that the advice that the angel gives to her, and the promise that is made to her. To me, what it said was, hey, you still a servant, right? Remember your place, but this is temporary. Your son is going to be a great man. Hang in there. Just do what you have to do for now. Things will change.
I find it interesting because I don't know if it's that I'm not at the point in my life where I can relate to that, or if I may never be able to relate to that. The concept that their lineage, their descendants are so important to them, that knowing that they will be plentiful, knowing that they will be kings and warriors, that was reassuring to them. For me, I'm more interested in my ancestors. I'm interested in who they were and what they've been through and what had to happen for me to be here than in the future generations.
But I think that it's a different point in world history, because this is post-flood.
Yes.
Yeah. So right now we starting over. We trying to repopulate the earth, and for every man, it would be important to him to make sure that his line gets carried on, right? And to think that you could have entire nations now stemming from you, I think for them that would have been an incredible thing to process. I think it's just it's just a different point in time, because I think for a lot of people right now, our ancestry, well, especially for our generation who can't afford to have children, looking back at who came before us and what makes us who we are is much more significant to us than processing about possibly or potentially having descendants. I think with the state of the world right now, we're wary of having descendants. So I think it's like in that context, it's very different.
But I think you're right. I think even like recently in history, like slavery, I feel like those people would have loved for an angel to come and tell them who their descendants would be, that they would be free people, and that they would be prime ministers and presidents and doing big things, changing the world. I think they would appreciate hearing that. Yeah.
Yep. I think the next thing I have in relation to it's in relation to Hagar's response to the angel's message, and like he tells her go back to Sarai, and she does, but like processing everything that he tells her, I think what may have coaxed her into going back is the fact that he told her she would have a son. Because here she is
providing the heir.
Potentially providing the heir. And I think that may have been what fuels her.
Okay.
And like we talked about this, right? And we talked about like the impact this situation had on like history and the world and everything. And I'm like, as much as I blame Sarah and Abraham, I was thinking about it, I was like, God could have intervened. Like, one, he could have made sure that Hagar didn't get pregnant. He could have also let her get pregnant with a girl. Alright? So he allowed the chaos to continue.
That's my thing. That's what I was thinking about that. Yesterday I was thinking about it. Like, we believe that everything happens for a reason. And like that becomes problematic in a lot of situations about people existing. Because like we can't say that God, like, some people's existence was caused by like terrible things, right?
Yes. We the descendants of slaves and indentured servants.
Exactly, right? So like I don't know that, and I thought about it in this context as well. I don't know that necessarily these things were planned, but I feel like God could make the most out of those situations.
I wouldn't say they were. I don't think he planned them, but I think he permits them.
And I think he permits it because he can make the most out of the situation. I think because like I don't want to call
down the line, and he was like, TJ and MJ will do what shall we say to we will. I will allow this to continue. You know,
like it literally fries my brain sometimes when I think about it. Like somebody back there getting whipped and beaten, right? Because somebody further down the line is going to come out as their descendant. And I don't think that it's because. I think that's my personal beliefs. I don't think it's because. And I don't think that we have to go through bad things for good to come out of it. But I think that God can take the bad and make a good come out of it. So I don't know. And this was, to me, this was one of those situations. I feel like I don't want to call Ishmael a mistake. I don't
because he was deliberate.
Yeah, he was deliberate. But I know I believe that he wasn't necessarily part of God's plan for Abraham. Yeah, I don't know that, like, I feel like God had a direct plan. But he's really good at improvising when things don't go well. Like he had the whole let's live in the Garden of Eden thing, and then Adam and Eve sin, and he's like, okay, I knew this was going to happen. I came up with a plan B. And so I feel like Ishmael's entire his entire existence and his not his history, his future, and his descendants, all of that, God improvised. And I don't mean it in the sense that it's
Improv.
exactly. I feel like
He always has a backup plan.
he had
A contingency plan.
a contingency plan, and it's as well thought out as the original plan. So like,
Because he knows humans.
right, yeah. So I feel like their backstory is as significant and carefully thought out as is
And orchestrated.
Isaac's and his descendants. Yeah. So that there was an interesting concept for me to think about, because I feel like it's very complicated, and I don't know that we could ever understand it completely, that God can intervene in situations like this. Like you were saying, he could have prevented Ishmael from being conceived and even born, but like he chose not to.
Another point I have from post Hagar's conversation with the angel of the Lord is that she walks away from the conversation being aware that Ishmael would potentially have brothers, and that there would not be peace among them.
Okay.
And so I am a peace loving person. Like, I can't deal with confrontation. I can't deal with I can't deal with conflict. But my preference is always to resolve conflict as far as possible. So, to walk away from this, to walk into a situation fully knowing that the child I am pregnant with is not going to have a peaceful relationship with their siblings would mess with my whole existence. I would be so uncomfortable. But it doesn't seem that it affected her. I can't say that.
We don't know.
We can't say that. But this was some inside information that she had that neither Sarah nor Abraham had. So it's like she went back with secret knowledge.
But this is one of my points as well. She had to have had a conversation with Abraham, because they say that Abraham named the boy Ishmael. And that was interesting to me. The whole concept. We believe that Hagar had an experience, an encounter with the Hebrew God. With she calls him the God who sees me, right? And which, as I always saying, I'm not sure, is particularly strange, because we have God revealing to the Pharaoh that something isn't right here. So we don't know that they necessarily believed in other gods. If they and we have that random dude in Salem who's a priest of God, the same God. So we don't know that we've had the diversion into multiple religions, or if maybe there are multiple gods. They believe in multiple gods, and this one is just happens to be one of them. The Hebrew God just happens to be one of them. But she has that conversation with God, and Abraham clearly believes that it was a conversation with his God, because he names the child Ishmael after the instructions she's been given. And I thought that was interesting. I don't know, after the whole contention with Sarai, and at the end of the day, this is still his child. This is literally his blood. And to take into consideration the experience of this child's mother after leaving her to be mistreated by Sarai showed me a little bit of character development. Otherwise, he might have had a conversation with God as well.
Yep. I think my final point, and I think I've been making this point throughout entire discussion of Abraham, but is that it's wild to think that someone who God has promised to have descendants as plentiful as the stars would have his first child at 86. It's just
And I think we continue to have that conversation next chapter.
yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so this roller coaster of it was a roller coaster for me, being like that bomb dropped in the beginning. You want to do lessons?
Sure. My first one is that sometimes God lets us do our own thing, right? Even when He knows how to mess up His plan for our lives. And like, I am at a point like in my personal life right now where I'm seriously contemplating that, where I'm wondering if like certain things I have done in the past have not been very Ishmael, the production of Ishmael like, and if I have not veered completely away from the path that God and the path and plan God had intended for me. So like processing that one, I was like, okay, God, like I see you let me do my own thing, but like you know, I think yeah.
I get you.
However, on the other hand, right, my second point is that at other times God will send someone or something to stop us in our tracks and tell us to go back.
Yeah, that's my first one. God will meet me in the wilderness. Yeah, and that to me that's so, I'm literally running away from my my current experience, and Hagar, it was not, as far as we know, this was not even her doing. This was done to her. And her retaliating against Sarai and being condescending and despising her, that's her doing. But she's running away from the results of that, and the whole reason she's in that situation is Sarah and Abraham's fault. But God will find her, and reach out to her, even in the wilderness. And that was just so endearing and heartwarming to me.
I think my next point about God follows that line, and it says God will look after those who have been mistreated and He will bless them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful.
I think we see that clearly in that encounter and experience Hagar has in the wilderness.
Yeah, for true. I think I like reading the Bible, especially the Old Testament, you get the belief that He's there for the underdogs. Like he's the champion of the underdogs. Yeah.
Yep.
Oof. My next point about God was related to one of the points you made about Abraham. Like, what did you say? You said something about Abraham thinking he needed to he needed to help God. Right. Yeah. Then my point is that like God doesn't need our help. Like He never needs our help.
That's my personal lesson.
Like never. Like he can accomplish His purpose a lot of the time faster and more successfully without our involvement. And I think the only times He involves us is when it's going to benefit us, when it's going to help us to grow, when it's going to help strengthen our faith. I feel like that's the only reason we involved in evangelism at all, because it's going to help
Save
us. Exactly. Yeah, but like He does not need our help. Like, does not. And I don't know why we keep forgetting that. Like, oh, let me do this for God. He does not need your help. Does not need my help. Yeah. So that was one of my main points. And my last one was, again, bringing it back to Hagar. Like, I can appreciate how she felt, like naming a whole well after the God who sees her. And I was looking at it as well, that they named Ishmael because it meant the God who listens, and the God who hears
and answers prayers. Yeah.
Right. I was just like, I could appreciate feeling like you seen and you known and understood, because like being mistreated and feeling like you're being unfairly treated, and I feel like that's what was happening to Hagar. This and it being a situation being outside of your control and feeling frustrated and feeling like you misunderstood
It's the world against
and
you.
everything has turned against you. That could be so frustrating and that could be so isolating. And to have the assurance that this powerful being is not only rooting for you, but he sees you, he understands you, he appreciates you for who you are and for what you are, and he is working things out, like you said, to bless you. That to me is just wow, awe-inspiring.
Okay, personal lesson time.
Okay.
So my first one is something you listed as a God lesson. My attempts to assist God will probably do more harm than good. God does not need my help.
Hello, sir. Where are you going?
I guess he's trying to get to the people barking outside. You need to go upstairs to bark at them.
Okay, that's one way to go. Yes, my point. I have 2 points. One of them was that in getting the things that I want, I need to be careful that I never become willing, or I never end up exploiting vulnerable people, or I'm never tempted to go against my values in order to get something that I want, even though it's something that God has promised me. I need to be aware that I'm not exploiting vulnerable people. I'm not going about it
Stepping on people.
right. Yeah. And my second one is that it was just a reminder. I think we spoke about that earlier in Genesis, that an aspect of faith is patience. And I need to be careful that in waiting for God's promise, I don't settle, and I don't I don't give up on the promise because something that looks like it might get me there faster is presented in front of me.
Word. I want to stop my face. Okay, so my points kind of roll into each other. When my bad ideas backfire on me, I cannot pass the blame, but must take full responsibility for my decisions and my actions.
Sarah, we're talking to you.
Like, 'cause I have some bad ideas sometimes. Okay. And in the moment, I think they're great, and then, they don't go as planned. And oftentimes, I'm like, like, it happens to me a lot in times, like, in attempting to have conversations with people, and I have to remind myself, like, you wrote a script for this conversation in your head, right? You didn't give this other person a script. So you thinking that this was a good idea to initiate this particular conversation, bring up this particular topic, was your bad idea. You need to take ownership for the, like, you having questionable ideas is your fault. My next point is running away will probably make things worse.
Okay.
And then the last point is, but even when I run, I can trust God to lead me to a water source. Okay, let me say that again. But even when I run, I can trust God to lead me to a water source in the desert, and I can trust Him to meet me there.
Beautiful. Yes. So as promised, this was a very long episode with lots of feelings and anger and rants. So yeah.
But that was Genesis chapter 16.
Yes. And so we move on next time, God willing. This has been What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm TJ.
And I'm MJ.
And until next time,
we're out.